What is going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. How's the crazy day going on your end of the world?
It's fine. It's fine. We've been struggling through a good 3.5 weeks now of like crazy hot weather.
Ooh.
And that has been an interesting challenge to try to maintain water temperatures. Because if
Now,
anybody out there has tried to lower water temperatures, it's way more challenging than heating it up.
yes, it is. Now, is this in the main facility or is this the greenhouse facility?
It's in both. It's
Okay.
in both. I learned a couple of lessons just this time around that we've had a cooling system before.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, I should back up a little bit. For the longest time, we managed to cool the tanks by using fans. The greenhouse facility has like a gigantic 48-inch fan, like a
Yeah.
big exhaust fan, and the whole building becomes like this wind tunnel. And then we have smaller fans as well that are kind of aimed at aquariums. Marginally helpful because they're mounted up higher, so they kind of like suck in hot air and shoot it down. That's not great.
Mhm.
We also have like these whirly bird vents at the top of the building, and that dramatically helped.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is we started to incorporate like a pretty advanced geothermal cooling system,
Nice.
and that's based off of our rainwater collection. So the rainwater cistern, it's underground. Like the lowest point of the rainwater cistern is probably 12 feet down,
Hmm.
and it holds roughly 10,000 gallons. So that's just a large body of water under the ground, and it acts like a huge heat sink. And we're able to kind of use heat exchangers to bring down the temperatures.
So you're heat exchanging with the underground water.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So we're not
Interesting.
like, yeah. So we're not like directly having contact with that water, but it is through like a heat exchange system. And so every zone is like independently controlled. Now, that was turned off to start this summer. Off the top of my head, I kind of forget why. Why did we do that? Oh, right, because we were remodeling the greenhouse layout. So a part of that is to redo those different zones because we no longer have like these three systems. We have two systems,
Hmm.
and so we had to rerun lines and stuff. So we had to shut off that system. And for a few years now, because I've had that system since we built the new building, I was under the impression that it was kind of underpowered, suboptimal. It's like, it's just okay. And I kind of left it at that. But when I fired it back up, it was really impressive. Really impressive. So it was probably close to 100 degrees outside
Yeah.
and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, obviously. Uh, and it's in a greenhouse. Now, the greenhouse is less and less of a greenhouse every year, so it's more covered, less light penetration, but it's more than 100 degrees in the greenhouse. And we were able to bring those tanks down to about 78 degrees.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think that once we did that step, we started to activate more of the zones. And I think the only thing that I would like to have improved on that is the actual heat exchange coil that's in our larger systems needs to be better because it's not transferring enough heat given like the length of the coil that's in
Are
there. So
you, is the coil cooling the air or are you cooling the water directly?
water directly.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So we
Interesting.
have we have a PEX coil that's
Mhm.
either like 100 to 200 feet, let's say, and it just runs the cool water from the uh,
Underground, basically, through the
underground.
tanks. Okay.
Yeah, and
Makes
that's all
sense.
done by on a controller. Now, to do that better, it shouldn't be PEX. They do make titanium heat exchange units,
Yeah.
and obviously it's going to be more. Um, and I've never tried it, so I'm kind of like a little bit reluctant. But um, a much smaller titanium coil would be like way, way more efficient. than PEX,
That's
because
fair.
PEX is a little insulating.
Yeah, it wouldn't transfer as much heat. Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
For the smaller systems, it's great, but once you get into like the 2,500 gallon systems, it's like the length is just not enough.
So, okay, that makes sense now. Because normally when I hear geothermal, people just drill into the ground. I never heard doing it directly into like a water body. Actually, that being said, there's have you watched that channel Linus Tech Tips? He had one where
Okay.
he's like cooling his computers with a swimming pool or something like that, or heating his pool
Oh,
from his things, whatever. But it's similar concept. But
yeah, yeah. So, just for like the geothermal nerds out there, there is a type of geothermal system. I think it's called an open loop geothermal, where you're basically using like a lake, and you're just sucking in water from a lake and putting the water back into the lake when you're done doing the
mm,
heat exchange. So that's kind of what I have going on with the underground cistern.
okay, well, that's pretty cool. I like it. If I had a big enough tank to justify it, I would be all over that for like heating and cooling versus conventional
So
ways.
to put into perspective how absolutely incredible it is, okay? Uh, if you, because there are calculators online. You can probably run it through AI at this point, to run it through ChatGPT if you're really curious. But if you look at the cooling requirement to bring, let's say, because let's say my coral farm is like, I don't know, 12,000, 15,000 gallons or whatever it is, and you wanted to bring it down a certain delta, right? So if my tanks are going to heat up to 90 degrees, I want to bring it down to, for easy math, let's say 80 degrees, right? So
Yep,
that's a 10-degree delta. To bring that volume of water down 10 degrees,
it's a lot.
you would need like a 50 horsepower chiller. And to operate like a chiller of that size
It's not cheap.
is 5,000 a month in electric.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I, with my geothermal system,
I like it.
can cool it for 200 watts.
That's probably just your pump.
It is just the pump.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
That's
that is like the real big thing of where it starts to scale. It's like when you have like impossibly large volumes of water that you need to bring down.
I've seen the opposite too, where people use like a house hot water tank to heat their tank. Same thing with like drop a big coil of PEX inside
Yeah,
and use that because it's a lot cheaper than running, thousands of watts of heaters.
exactly. And we do the same. We do heat exchange from like a dedicated closed loop boiler system. And that's also a lot safer because you're not having a super poorly constructed high like voltage thing sitting in your water,
Yep.
because like an 800-watt heater sitting in your water, not great.
No, especially if something fails or it shorts.
And they fail all the time. My my general rule when it comes to like small hobbyist heaters is you should probably consider replacing it every like 1 to 2 years, even if it's working,
Yeah,
because they're not designed to be mission critical devices. They're designed to be about $50
that's
and
fair.
not immediately kill you.
I had one of my water mixing Eheim was starting to like get all moisture inside of it. So I'm like, yep, you're done. So finally got a new one. Like I don't want to get zapped. It seeps
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, when you see the water condensation in the glass, it's like, oh,
Yep. It's starting to
yeah,
rust inside. You're like, yeah, that's not good. I
now's not the time to save money.
I normally use the titanium ones in my tank, but for water mixing, I just use whatever ones. But
The titanium ones fail too.
you know, I know
Yeah,
you don't
it's
just don't know as easily.
exactly. And that's why for my bigger systems we use heat exchangers, so there's no electronic components sitting in the water like that.
Hmm. No, it's a good way to do it. One day when I do a big tank, yeah, who knows?
Uh, is that something that you really look forward to?
I don't know. I go back and forth. Part of me is like the idea of it I like, but at the same time, like it's a lot more work and effort, and I would need a dedicated sump room. I already have it planned out in my head. Is if I get the right space, then I want one that's in the wall, just on two sides, so you see like the two sides of it. And then the back half would be in a sump room, so it's easy to maintain. It'd be all automated. It's the only way I do it.
Mhm.
But it'd be like an aesthetic piece of the house, like just a big long You know, it would look like I don't know, just the corner. I like that aesthetic. I think it'd be neat.
Yeah. Sometimes I see these really large tanks, and
You
I
like too
have
much work.
like a violently negative reaction
Hmm.
to how much work that is just to have.
Yeah, you know, but then like I look at my water box. It's like, you know, 6 foot, 200 gallons ish. And it's like, it's really not that much work now that it's established and it's been around for a while and everything's automated for the most part. So it's like, I do a water change every few months and then that's about it. Gets fed.
I think the general consensus is it starts to turn right around 400 to 500 gallons. It goes from like big tank, but is like sort of manageable.
Hmm.
Right around that 500-gallon mark, it's like, oh, it's kind of less manageable, period. Like suddenly problems can't be solved by a single hobbyist problems.
Yeah,
It,
that's
ha-
fair.
it has that feel to it. I mean, I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there with like 500 to 1,000-gallon aquariums that they're perfectly happy with, but woof, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
I don't even care what the gallons is. I think it's more just the dimensions, like 6 to 8 feet long, you know, 3 feet deep, and height, who knows? But I think that'd be like cool. It's probably up there for gallonage.
It's
But
a
that,
pretty big tank.
you
Yeah.
know, but it'd have to be easy to work on. Like you just got to make your life easy. Like you need a big mixing bin, you know, turn a valve, do a water change, call it a day. Like that's the key. It'd
Have a
have to be
sink
easy.
in your maintenance rooms. That's very important.
You have the tank right there. You could have the sump basically the same height. You don't have to bend over to work on it. You know, it's elevated. Like it would be all like those little things just to make it super easy to maintain. So you actually do it. That'd be the
Drain
key.
in the floor so you preserve your marriage a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Draining the floor, a sink in there to deal with the skimmer, or you get fancy where it just auto cleans itself with mist the sprayers. You have to all those little things.
Yeah, the bells and whistles are nice.
You know. They have those like roller drum filter things. I'm starting to see more and more now, like the big commercial ones, but smaller. Instead of
I'm very curious to see how well that works in saltwater because for the folks out there that don't know what a drum roller is, it's a mechanical filter. It's like a mechanical filter that self cleans.
yeah,
So it basically it gets clogged, and as it gets clogged, it'll hose itself down, and the what would you call it, like the waste line from that hosing process goes to a drain.
yeah.
And I think it works great for like ponds. Kitty, it can move.
The darkness shadow goes by.
Yeah. um, but yeah, so it works really well in ponds because it's like fresh water.
Hmm.
But these things are typically gigantic. It's the size of a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah, I saw one that wasn't that big recently. Somebody posted it
There's
somewhere.
new ones.
Yeah.
There's new ones that are small.
Hmm.
And I think it's like a German company was the one that was debuting it. So that's the size of like, I don't know, a little mini keg or something.
Yeah.
So like a Saint Bernard keg, right? Uh, but I'm thinking when it sprays down though, and it's sending salt water away, does that screw up your salinity every single time it runs?
I mean,
I
maybe it
just
doubles as your ATO.
It could. And I wonder, like, does it make like massive salt creep?
Probably would be a mess.
Yeah, I just don't know
That's
because
fair.
it's adapted from ponds
Yeah.
and really, really large displays and generally considered super mega overkill for a saltwater aquarium. But I really do like the idea of a self-cleaning filter that doesn't require replacement filter rolls.
Yeah. Self cleaning is really the key to the. So this is like kind of the idea what they are, where it's like you got a big mesh drum in the middle, and your water flows through it, and it kind of sprays it off, and your water goes through, and all the little particles attach to the drum, and then you have your fresh water or whatever spraying it off. Kind of the concept, but
Yeah, and it sprays it from the outside in,
mhm.
right, into a channel that collects
So
that off spray.
yeah, so I guess actually the nasty's in the middle, and your clean
Mhm.
water just filters through and overflows out.
Yes. Yeah, there's the nasty channel drain in the middle.
Probably would smell lovely.
It's probably fine. It's probably fine.
If you use Ozone. Are you still
Yeah,
using Ozone on your system?
I am using Ozone, yeah, which is like something that requires a little bit of maintenance as well. Make sure that's running properly.
How often do you check it or like maintain it?
I have to be better about it because I walked by a couple of the units, and there's like an airflow meter, and both of them were not running air. I'm like, uh-oh, why is it not doing that? And just like water had accumulated on the water intake line, because whenever we do service the protein skimmers, occasionally a little bit of water will back up into that air intake,
Hmm.
and since it's the actual ozone generator so far away,
Yep.
it doesn't have the suction power to draw up
That makes
all of
sense.
that water that made it into the line, so it wasn't like delivering ozone.
How far away do you have yours?
About 12 feet away,
Okay.
I guess.
Mine's probably like 8 to 10 feet. But yeah, I have it just going into like the second Venturi port on the skimmer, so it gets sucked in.
Yeah, that's more or less what we have got going on. But I think that yeah, we just needed to just to do the lines better. Oh, one thing that we did update this time around is I was using the John Guest
Hmm.
push connect stuff. You're not supposed to use that with ozone.
Oh, did
And
it break it down?
well, it didn't, but over time it would have,
Yeah.
because we have the similar like John Guest style thing, right, that goes right into the into the skimmer intake, and that had broken multiple times. And
On mine, I just used a bigger piece of tube as like a coupler, and I shoved my other tube in it. So I was just a piece of whatever scrap tubing
oh, like
that
a
just fit inside.
sacrificial.
Yeah, just like get a little
Yeah,
adapter, but that worked well.
they make ozone safe ones though that are black.
Ah, like the Nylar or Kylar or whatever. Those are white.
I forget exactly what it's made of, but yes, it's specifically a lot more resistant to ozone. And so I went and like redid all of my other push connects to that stuff to last a little longer.
That is wise. Um, Stacy, best way to get rid of nitrates. Sorry. One thing that I use that worked really well like a couple years ago, was something called NitroGuard. And sorry, I'm dying. You basically put like an air stone above this like media that slowly dissolves, and it's probably carbon dosing or something, but it very gradually dropped my nitrates over a couple months. It was a very gentle way to do it, and it worked very well.
I should talk just so you can clear your throat, huh?
I know.
I should be a bro. Um, there's a few different things you could do, right? So you could be a little bit more aggressive on your mechanical filtration, right? If you're not using filter socks, throw a filter sock on there and clean it like daily so that it doesn't start to break down in the filter sock. That's one. You can run your skimmer more aggressively. If you have a protein skimmer, run it more aggressively. Uh, you could also just be uh, more proactive about water changes, just dilute it straight up. One thing I don't love to do is to feed less. This is like an internal struggle all the time
Mhm.
within Tidal Gardens. I want to feed more. Other people in the building want to feed less. The fish are giant and fat, so there
Mhm.
is some argument that we might be feeding like plenty and we could cut back. But just delivering less food could solve your issue right there. But if you don't want to feed less, another thing you can do is, if you're feeding frozen, is to rinse the food more thoroughly. And so you have less of that uneaten um, debris and fines and stuff like that.
To me, that's free for coral food, though.
Yeah, exactly. But so
Yeah.
which is more important? It's like, is it the free coral food, or are you worried about your nitrate levels climbing to a point where it's going to get kind of problematic for your corals?
But out of all the stuff I tried, that NitroGuard stuff, though, over like 2 months, it took mine from like 60 down to like 10 to 20 and stayed there for a long time for like just a
Assuming,
super passive way.
assuming for a moment that is a bacterial thing, what I've kind of noticed is
Mm.
that there are these live bacteria supplements that are usually like a food source of some kind. So I use Bacillus. I know
Mm,
that the stuff from PNS, purple non-sulfur,
yep.
that those types of bacteria, like those are similarly like used as like a food type additive,
Mm.
and both of them are supposed to reduce nitrate and phosphate. Well, just in our experience, we've only done a little bit of the PNS stuff, and we've done quite a bit of the Bacillus stuff.
What's been your like experience so far?
Okay, so I'm noticing that it does do a pretty noticeable job dropping phosphate and not so much dropping nitrate.
Interesting.
And I don't know if that's a typical thing or if it's just a weird thing in our building,
Mm.
but it is both of those bacteria foods are touted for their nitrate removing abilities, and we haven't seen it here.
I will have to experiment with that. I've had some sitting in my shopping cart for like a month. I just haven't done an order yet, so it's still in my cart. But eventually I'll get some and I'll try it. Because my nitrates are probably high. I haven't tested them in ages, but I'm assuming they're probably high by now. My phosphate's worse. I actually slapped on some Roaphos in a reactor for the first time in probably a year or two, just
Oh
to
yeah.
knock them down a bit.
uh, yeah, it turns out granular ferric oxide still works.
Yep, sure does. It's
I
hard to
forget
beat
what
it.
the
Just don't
story of
overdo it.
is. I from what I remember, because shoot, I mean, I met David Saxby,
Yeah.
and I heard this story, but I just had forgotten it since September. So when we were all together. But from what I understand, like Roaphos is a very high quality product version of granular ferric oxide.
Yep. I think it works better than a lot of the generic GFOs in my experience.
So I think the generic GFOs are like it's like a reused thing. It's like a
Hmm,
reused media.
good to know.
So it's already been used in industry, and it gets like recycled because you can recycle it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that I might be talking out of school here, but I think that every like generic GFO on the market is like basically some type of industrial waste that's been reconstituted versus the ROA stuff, which I think is basically the pure stuff made from Germany.
Huh. Good to know. I know like some of the resin based ones you can regenerate. I didn't know you
Hmm.
could with normal GFO though.
Yeah, but then again, this is kind of one of those things that it's like this is what I heard, but it was a consistent thing that I heard.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool. Good to know.
Yeah,
Even like DI beads, supposedly you can like regenerate those too. And I've never
you can do
tried it,
DI.
but I don't
Yeah,
know if it's
you
worth the
can.
time and effort. But
Well, it's dangerous.
oh, yeah, that's why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think it's worth it from like a safety standpoint because people do
Mm,
because you have to use like really strong acids and bases. So, and you know you actually might already be using the unsafe base.
probably. I watched a video about it like probably a year ago. I was like, oh, I should try that one day, but it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, yeah. It's like using like some of the strongest acids and bases to free up DI media, and it's like, or you can just throw it away and just buy new media.
Yeah, that's probably easier for the $12 or $15, whatever it cost you.
Yeah.
And I have pretty good PDS here most of the year, so it's really not that big of a deal. My DI lasts ages. I probably change it every 6 months, maybe.
And you're running that after your RO.
Yes.
Yeah. So in theory, if your RO is working well, it should be you should be sending like single digit TDS to your DI unit.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly. It's like 3, 4, whatever. It's
yeah.
very low, which is good. And then I have dual DI canisters, so whenever I change one, I just like change the first one, I move the second one to the first spot, and then it kind of takes up that
Mhm.
slack. It's a good system.
Yeah.
Okay, someone a few minutes ago was asking a question if there's anything that eats ball anemones. Not sure on that one. You know of anything?
Uh, So the ones that are like little hitchhikers, that are like the really pretty ones, like the strawberry colored ones, those are the pseudocoronactis. Uh, I don't. I mean, I know that like a copper band will eat it, but typically what happens is whenever we try to even grow those things normally, as soon as they get exposed to light, they just eventually disappear. Like
Hmm.
they're surprisingly difficult to keep around.
Yep. Yeah, it's been years since I've actually seen them in any of my tanks. Interesting that light gets rid of them. So I like the darkness.
Yeah, so because usually they're on like the underside of a rock or
Yeah.
something. Like, oh, it's on the underside. Why don't I like turn it right side up and then feed it every day? It's gone.
No pets for you. They're gone. Shadow creatures.
Yeah.
Do do do. RO is very cheap in bulk. Yeah, if you're gonna use it, just buy the really big ones. It's way better bang for your buck. That's just most things, to be honest. Even like filters, like when they're on sale, you just buy like the case of 40 or whatever, and you're set for a few years.
Yeah, it turns out like volume purchasing makes a big difference.
You just need a reef shed for all of your hoarding.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things that I wish that I had here it was an actual dedicated warehouse just to hold the stuff in an organized way for the things that we use on a day-to-day basis. Like the amount of just stuff required is insane.
What do you go through the most that you would legitly buy in bulk with if you had the space for it?
Um, Salt, that's a
Mm-hmm.
big one. That's a real big one because we can only buy that like maybe 2 pallets at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to be able to purchase that in larger and larger volumes because you save like quite a bit. I don't know if quite a bit is the right word, but you would save some money on that
Mm-hmm.
because the because at some point you just fill up an entire single semi truck
Yep.
and you're good, right? You've kind of spread out the cost of the entire semi over the course of, I don't know, 40 pallets or whatever. So that would be nice.
Yeah.
And also, like when you have that level of buying power, your relationship with suppliers is just a little bit different.
That's fair. The deals get better and better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think that's kind of the thing is I always find it funny whenever I see like a random comment on the internet about like some coral farms, and it's like, yeah, like Ecotech must be just giving away all these lights to all these coral farms. I'm like, I promise you, they're not giving away 300 radions to anybody,
Nope.
right? But if you wanted to buy 300 radions, it is less expensive than you might think. It's
Yeah.
still a lot of money, but
But
it is
there's
less
deals when you're
expensive.
buying that many.
Yes, yes.
There's always economy of scale in bulk.
Yeah. You just have to buy 300 radions,
Yeah.
guys.
If you
That's
want
the hack.
to, probably not, you know?
Yeah.
You need a lot. Um, Copper bands might be the solution if they lower half of micromucil. Okay, micromucils are a risk with copper bands. I used to have a wonderful, beautiful, amazing collection, and they came to the demise of my copper band over time. So that is a risk.
Could happen.
Yep, sadly. But there's no aptasia that's visible in that tank. It's trade off.
Yeah, that's nice. We had a copper band here that stopped eating Aptasia. That was not great.
Yeah.
We had to replace him with an Australian stripey, and that stripey did some work. It probably ate 1,000 Aptasia in a week.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, and it's such a strange fish because it doesn't eat it during the day.
Only when no
You,
one's looking.
yeah, you never see it eat an Aptasia, and then literally like 1,000 Aptasia are gone.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like how'd that even happen?
That's all right. I've went through some extreme measures to tone mine down. So a
I
stripey
think I
sounds like
saw
a good
your video.
solution.
You're like power washing it.
Yeah, it worked. You know, it literally within the day or two, it went from looking like crap to looking great. So, it works. I'm sitting there looking at him. I was like, I added a little file fish And I'm like, he's
Mhm.
not gonna eat the ones that are like as big as him. Like it's not gonna happen. Like he'll eat the little ones. I'm like, I gotta help him out. I'm like, that's gonna cost me like $1,000 in freaking F-Aptasia. So I'm like, nope, just pop it out and just
Yeah, I've got a few
very cool.
giant ones in one of my tanks that has like a what amounts to a baby copper band in it. And like the more I think about it, like those Aptasia might be every bit as big, if not twice the size of that poor little fish.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what? I should just get in there with like a scraper blade and scrape and siphon that guy out and just and if anything grows back, then maybe at that point the copper band can handle it.
You know, that's a not bad idea because he probably will go after the little ones, right? It's just the big ones. They're not gonna go after the
Yeah,
monsters.
yeah.
Yep. But yeah, no, I can't even really find an Aptasia now, where it's all I could see a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. I think it was
Mhm.
well worth it.
Yeah, yeah, because
Extreme measures, if you can. Think like my water box would never happen. This tank, I thankfully glued all my because it's basically a Gonny tank. I glued all my Gonnies to little chunks of rock rubble, so it was really easy to take all the corals off. If I
nice.
actually had it on the rock, it wouldn't happen. But
Now think if this was a 500-gallon tank full of rocks, and then you had an Aptasia outbreak in that.
you just pick a different rock each week and you just like divvy it up. That's probably what I'd do if it was big and it was that bad.
Yeah.
Or just add a bunch of Bergia or a couple filefish. I don't know.
So in one of our tanks that is, I don't know, 600 gallons, that has Aptasia, um, I probably threw in 50 of the nudibranchs at
Mm-hmm.
one time or another, and they all got eaten by fish
Dang.
because we have like wrasses and damsels in there. And unfortunately, the Bergia work really well when they do work, but I think that there's like just certain fish that just love to eat them.
Yeah. No, sadly so. I added a couple, and I don't know if they're in there or not, or who knows. It's always a mystery.
It's usually like one day you just have so many little eggs that show up, and poof, all your Aptasia are gone. It's a nice feeling.
It is. When I used to have like the big shallow, braggish style tank in here, and when I was tearing it down to like swap tanks, I was taking all my racks and stuff out, and I've probably found like 50 or 60 Bergia in all little cracks of the egg crate and stuff, and I didn't even know I had a single one in there anymore. So they're pretty good hiders.
It's a pleasant surprise.
Yep,
Like,
exactly.
ooh, better leave that egg crate alone.
Yep. Yeah, I sat there at the turkey baster and collected them all so I can put them back in later. The things we do for our tanks. They're expensive
Yeah.
for like how tiny they are. It's crazy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Also, one little thing for the people that are trying to grow them at home. And so obviously fish can be a problem, right? It's the usually damsels are like the prime suspects there. But the other thing is if you have like a lot of copepods and amphipods,
Mm.
those will eat the eggs and they'll eat the
Babies.
actual adults
Oh,
if
adults too?
they get hungry enough. I mean,
Huh.
I've seen like hungry amphipods do crazy stuff. Like I've seen them eat like a sea cucumber before.
Really?
Yeah,
Dang.
that's gnarly. But
Ruthless.
it's yeah. I was like, yeah, it was pretty horrific.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do,
So if you have interceptor is your friend in that regard.
good to know. Get rid of all your copepods.
Mhm. All the crustaceans are gonna die
Huh.
if you run interceptor.
It's
I also learned that if you run interceptor at a high enough dosage, it'll start to kill your corals. Found that I found that threshold.
what's the threshold?
I think it's like 3 to 5x is like you're
Yeah.
in the danger zone.
And below that, you're relatively safe.
Yeah, I mean, so like 1x, let's call it, and
Mhm.
so the x that I'm talking about is like whatever is just like the going formula that's
Recommended.
on the internet. But we were using like I think 3x interceptor, and yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot, and so we lost some acropora here and there.
Ah, that sucks. Okay, good to know. Have you done the fluconazole route for treating your tank, like the angel fish fins plus whatever it was called, or just using
And
fluconazole?
bendazole.
Flubenazole, thank you.
Yeah. Not yet. I haven't.
Yeah.
I got a prescription for it. It's in a little baggie, like the most like shady deal ever, right? I got a little baggie of it from the vet,
Yeah.
and we're like just staring at it, like, are we gonna do this or not? And like, I don't know if we're gonna do this or not. I have this like little $90 baggie of fenbendazole. It's like people are like, just put a pinch in. What the hell's a pinch?
Yeah. In what size system?
Yeah,
Like
and
there's
what
no
size
clear directions on it except for
right.
dose a
It's
bunch
still
and
cutting edge. And so clearly I'm not just gonna be like, oh, let me just put it into my 2,500-gallon system that's like half filled with acros. Like, let's not do that, right?
yeah.
So maybe if we had like a small independent tank that has acros, and for some reason acro eating flatworms made it through all of our defenses and
Mhm.
have gone crazy on this thing, then we can experiment to see if like fenbendazole will get rid of them. And I know that to some degree it will. I
Mhm.
just don't know at what cost, right?
Yeah.
Because you can kill anything with a high enough dose, turns out. Um,
And when that stuff dies, is it going to cause chain reaction for something else or?
yeah, and there might just be like some unknown collateral damage, right? So like I would hate it if it suddenly started to kill my urchins or something random like that. I
Yeah.
heard that it can kill starfish or something weird.
Good to know.
There's a lot of anecdotes out there as to what it does and doesn't kill with dosages that are kind of murky at best.
No, that's fair. I haven't found any like consistency in what's the dosage, right? Especially when they're saying like, dose a pinch of the food is like, well, what does that translate to actual
Yeah.
flubenazole?
And we don't have the food.
Yeah.
Like we have the raw stuff.
I
So
have some of that somewhere. One of my sheds from like, it was called fish benzidol back in the day. And I think I bought it to kill like hydroids or something in my freshwater days. Like it's probably like 15 years old, but I'm sure it still works once I find it.
so if so putting on like the optimist hat,
Mm.
being like a pure optimist, what would be the ideal dream scenario would be that it kills acro-eating flatworms, it
Yep.
kills hydroids, and it kills
Clove polyps,
the
purple clove.
I don't even mind those. We
Yeah.
sell that as a product. Uh,
Okay, you want those?
yeah, it's fine. Um, it's the spirobid worms.
Mm-hmm.
That's like basically the stuff that like worms and hydroids that can grow inside of an acro
Yeah.
and kind of like kill it.
Be
Like
interesting if it worked on those.
I'd have a hard time imagining it doesn't,
I think it would.
considering it's a dewormer of sorts.
Yeah.
You're putting into the water. Those are filter feeders. Like I think that
And it's
it might
a
have high
worm.
contact. Oh, and then if it happens to kill vermidid snails, bonus.
Bonus. Yep.
Yeah,
There's good
that would
potential.
be like yeah. If it handles like the four like okay, granted, like vermidid snails is not really a pest as far as like acros are
They're
concerned.
just slightly annoying.
Yeah, the other two, worms also kind of a nuisance, but at least that could kill a colony.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like the flatworms are a problem.
Yeah.
That's like the main target.
I'm tempted to do it just for like preventative, just to like. I've heard some people say they dose, their tank looks better. Like there probably was a pest it took out.
It could, yeah. I'm just scared
That's fair.
because
Let me know if you
I
do
have
it.
a lot at stake.
I know.
So separate aquarium, small. What sometime when we actually have enough attention to direct at something like that, it's something that I'd like to try.
If you do, let me know. I'm curious.
Yeah, probably make a video.
I like
Unless it
it.
goes really, really, really badly, then no, you won't see video.
You'll never hear about it again.
I want to get it right first, right?
Yeah.
So it might take some time.
Okay, Aussie Dan. Major problem with bristle worms in my frag tank. How can I take care of them without a RAS? What actually I discovered randomly, what that worked extremely well, is I had a rock with like all those. Now the camera's not on, but can you see it? Anyways, that one full of those like ultra citrus rhodactis mushrooms. And when I was transferring tanks, I had that in a bucket and I dumped in a bunch of Prosy Pro and it took out all the bristleworms. I have a video I posted somewhere on it, but within a few minutes, they were crawling out of the rock and dead within minutes. It worked phenomenally well to get rid of bristleworms. Yep.
Interesting. Prasy.
Yep. Prosy Pro. It was magical.
It didn't mess with any of your corals.
Nope. I did it on, any rock that was covering corals. I put it on and it worked.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure I posted a thing to Instagram. I'll see if I can find it. Because they were literally just like crawling off of the rock. Like it amazed me how well it worked. It was just like a hunch I had. I was like, oh, it's a dewormer. They're kind of like worms. Let's try it. And it worked very, very well.
So my staff hates bristleworms. I like them.
Yeah.
So they're like, we need to do something about these bristleworms. I'm like, who's we?
Well, buy them a bottle of Prosy Pro and say, have at her. Where'd I post that to?
I think they can just deal with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Worm buddies.
Yeah, I'll find it later. But yeah, it worked extremely well. So if you want to rid them, Prosy Pro's your friend. I don't know if I'd like dose a whole bottle to a whole tank, but dosing, a rock full of something in a bucket. Not promising it's not going to have any effect on like fancy acros and stuff as like mushrooms and like other random stuff. But it's good. Yeah, Angel Food Plus was the one that lots of people are using. No deaths, 3 months. My fish love the food. They couldn't get fenbendazole anymore. It is harder and harder to find.
Fenbendazole?
Yeah.
Get a good relationship with your vet that understands aquarium stuff. Or is like at least open-minded to it and just go with that.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, you got to find a source that's in bulk and not just like these a little capsule with a teeny bit.
Oh, no. Like this guy,
Okay.
I have a guy, right?
Yeah.
No, but it's like the vet can get you like whatever quantity. I mean, okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. He can get you a reasonable quantity.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, because it's like it depends on who it is and what you're doing, right? Like you don't need an enormous quantity of fenbendazole.
This is true.
Right? For a home aquarium. Like I don't need an enormous quantity of this stuff. I just have a little $90 baggie of it and I'm scared to use it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, like
it's good to have.
I just have a hard time imagining like why do you need a lot of stuff unless you're like cutting it with cocaine or something.
That's fair. I was ages ago was I looking at not fenbendazole, fluconazole for getting rid of algae and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laughing because I was looking on like AliExpress or somewhere, and you could buy like a kilo of it. I'm like, is this like kilo of some random white powder actually going to make it here? I'm like, this would look so sketchy going through customs.
Mm-hmm.
I laughed. I never did buy it, but it made me laugh when I found it from like Alibaba and all these like random sites.
Yeah, that's the stuff that like the doctors and the vets are really squirrely about. They're like, I can't believe that they sell you that.
I mean, I didn't try it, but it was available to purchase. Who knows if you're actually going to get it? You might be out a couple $100, or you might have like a lifetime supply, 50-50.
Yeah. I mean, in the past, like we ordered it just online. Like it was just it's normal. Like it's like fish fenben or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Fish benzidol.
Yeah, it's made for freshwater fish tanks, and yeah, like when I told that to my vet, he was just like, seriously, because like the antifungal stuff is I guess pretty highly regulated when it comes to like the veterinary side of things.
The good old days when you could just buy stuff online. When's the right time to add coral? From the beginning. Tanks were wet for over a week. Use rock, live sand, lights are on. Low was they go doing a test piece of LPS. Absolutely. You're cycling the tank for the fish, not for the coral. And adding coral really is adding, good bacteria to your tank. I wouldn't do crazy expensive ones, but I'd like some cheaper whatever corals. I personally would add them.
Or just not necessarily cheap, but corals that tend to be just hardier.
Yeah.
And I would say just not acropora, not like a lot of like the more delicate SPS, but I would go as far as to say you could probably fill that tank full of coral and it's probably going to be fine. And it'll probably be better off. Like coral in many ways acts like filtration.
Yeah, exactly. It's adding good bacteria. It's helping cycle your tank in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I'm with you. Back
Yeah,
in the day,
minimal biological footprint as far as waste.
mhm,
Yeah.
to the extreme example, like many, many, many years ago, I bought a couple bigger corals when I was upgrading a tank, but they were too big to fit in my little 30-gallon tank. There's just no space for it. So I had it living in a 5-gallon bucket with a power head, a heater, and a radion above it for like a month. And I just give
Hmm.
it a water change every few days. Like, really, the only issue is like keeping the parameters, relatively stable-ish. But, so they can live in, basically brand new salt water, and they were fine. So,
Yeah, the water changes goes a long way for sure.
hmm do you start the tank with lights on or wait for the ugly stages? If you add coral, lights on; no coral, lights off while it's cycling. Because all you're
You
going to grow
might
is
not
algae if you
get
don't
an
have
ugly
coral.
stage.
Yeah, an ugly
I think
stage.
that's where I screwed up is because I had a 3,000 gallon system, and I waited close to 12 months going through an ugly stage.
Hmm.
That was largely unnecessary because one day I said, forget this. I'm just gonna throw in like a bunch of excess coral that was overgrowing the other farming systems, and all of that ugliness cleared right up overnight.
Yeah, just
And I was
good
like, oh,
bacteria.
okay. I should have done that earlier.
Yep.
Should have done that earlier.
Yeah, I have like in my one tank, I have like a giant bag of like Cyperax that's been in there for like months and months and months. So my buddy starts his tank, and I'm like, here you go, throw in your sump. You'll probably be like insta cycled. Having established media from coral or like those media bricks or whatever, like goes a long way. Um,
Hmm.
there was a question in the chat a while ago, just popped to my mind. They're asking about high aluminum levels and some of the ceramic media blocks. I haven't personally had that, but some of them, it is possible. Like if there is some in there, it could be leaching because I think they said they had on high ICP.
Yeah, we've seen that.
You know,
It's it it's a thing. I mean, anytime that you have like these like fired ceramic things, you're going to get some heavy metals, and aluminum is pretty high on that list.
you know, if you are using those, over time I've kind of become a fan of like the Cyprax one because it's made with glass instead of ceramic, so there's less of a issue of it leaching or having any other stuff.
Does it get spongy over time for any reason?
No, it's like a rock. Yeah, it's literally like glass based crystals, so it's super hard.
Hmm.
But
Who
some of the
makes that?
ceramic ones will have that issue over time.
Yeah, because the ones that we have that are ceramic are kind of getting spongy and breaking down.
Yeah, I've
So
had
we're
that with the
slowly
ceramic
just
ones long
removing
term.
them. Yeah, we're moving away from them.
They're good for kickstarting a tank, but I don't really think you need one long term if you have rock and coral and the rest of it in there, personally.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to seed a tank. Throw it in your buddy's sump for a month or two before you start your tank and snag it back, and you got all kinds of goodness. Or past too, This is a risk, but
Yeah, I was just
hopefully just
thinking.
goodness.
It's like you'll get all the pests and you can just blame your friend.
Yep, exactly.
It's like, thanks for
Get,
the
get,
flat
just
one.
get it over with right from the beginning. Is there any like common pests that are like the bane of your existence in any of the tanks? Or are they more or less under control now? Or is
Well,
there still ones that are like
everything's under control, right? Because I think that I think there's like stuff that is like super ubiquitous in this hobby, and when you talk about like scale operations, the idea that there are going to be systems that don't have them, I think is like ludicrous. So things like vermitid snails, they're just gonna be around. We
mm-hmm.
try like really diligently to try to remove them when possible, and also like have some positive predation. Made an entire video about like the 5 or 6 different things you can try to do to help with vermitids, but like getting rid of vermitids, short of bleaching your tank, I don't really think that's gonna happen. And also to completely exclude them from your system long term, I've never seen that actually work for anybody.
You would have to quarantine everything that ever goes in your tank.
I did.
Yeah.
and they for like 72 days, and they still get through. You know,
Sneaky.
because it's things happen.
Yep.
It can come in on a fish, perhaps. Like there's like they're a free swimming snail at some point, and
Are they free swimming? I guess they are because they do just kind of randomly show up. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, they have like a some kind of pelagic stage, and that's why they're in your pipes. And yeah, it's fun,
Yeah.
But again, it's like these things are more like nuisances than anything. The stuff that I actually would worry about would be like acro-eating flatworms, the things that are true corallivores. Um, Montipore eating nudibranchs are
Hmm.
largely undefeated in any place I've ever seen. Um,
I had them once, and it actually wasn't that bad to rid them.
okay.
I I would only see them at night, like in the morning. So I added a yellow chorus wrasse to eat the babies, and B, every morning for like a couple weeks, I would just like get a water change hose and I'd suck out all the ones that I could see. They were never on in the daytime, but first thing in the morning before the lights came on, I'd find them. So I'd go with the flashlight and grab a hose. I'd just suck them all out physically. And I added a small yellow chorus and just to take care of any babies that ever popped up. And then,
Mm.
after a week or two of doing that every few days, it just went away. Never saw them again, took them out.
We're doing something like pretty substantial right now. We're completely remodeling the greenhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and a part of that is like viciously going through a Montipora collection
Yep.
and pretty much like restarting it all. Um, but what tends to happen is we don't see them for like 4 years, and in let's say 3, 4, 5 years, we don't add a single Montipora, and we haven't seen a nudibranch in that entire time. And one day it just gets hot enough in the summer, your tanks get to like 85 degrees one day, and all of a sudden some ancient egg hatches, and now you have something again.
Preserved itself in stasis, just waiting for the right conditions.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess that's another thing. We try to keep our temperatures lower, not just for like the health of the corals, but you tend to run into fewer issues with um, like these sort of pests and stuff like that breeding and bacterial issues. Like a lot of stuff gets really tamped down when you're operating at 76, 77 versus 79, 80. There's a big difference in like what the microbiome and like eggs are doing.
Mm. Yeah, I do agree. Like, I prefer to keep my tanks cooler. Like, obviously, it doesn't always happen when it's like a bazillion degrees outside, but the rest of the year, like trying to, that 76, 77, I find is like a happy thing for a lot of the tank.
Yeah. If we had the ability, and I'm like just kind of like brainstorming ways that we could get it done, but it's just expensive.
Yeah.
Um, it- but yeah, I would love to be able to like just say, okay, I don't care what it's doing outside. We have a system that can pull these temperatures down all the way into like the mid 70s, and I don't care how hot it is. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Preferably for not a lot of wattage, because there's a dumb way to do this too. That's also expensive.
I mean, your your big cooling loop, heat exchanger is a good way to do it. And really, the power of one pump isn't bad for all that cooling or heating, whatever capacity, whatever direction it's going. But
Yeah. The problem is I think that like the limit at that point becomes your 10,000 gallons underground. Like,
mhm,
should it be closer to 30,000 gallons? Should you be actively cooling that with a secondary geothermal loop that goes into the field? And it's
yep,
like all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's a $60,000 solution.
save you a couple $100 a month and running a chiller.
And most importantly, you will be able to drop those tanks down to 76 degrees and avoid a lot of these other issues.
Hmm. Yep. Well, it's
But
interesting.
Coral Farm brainstorming stuff, it's like I don't exactly have that kind of money burning a hole in my pocket right now on a system that is currently working okay.
One day if you're digging up the field, you're like, oh, might as well throw some pipe in there while it's all dug up.
Yeah, exactly.
Future use.
12
Um,
feet deep.
exactly. Uh, with just the vermicide snails, yeah. So coral snow or just calcium carbonate powder does work fairly well, reasonably well. It takes time though. Basically, you just dump it in your tank and it clouds up your water, and the verminted snails eat it. And because there's zero nutrition and basically chalk powder, it kind of helps starve them out over time. So that mixed with a bunch of bumblebee snails is a really good way to, might not 100%, but mostly rid them over time.
The snails is like what the bumblebee snails is what we're going with.
Yep. Now, they will also eat other snails, so if they're hungry,
Mm-hmm.
they'll go for worms and snails. So keep that in mind. If you have a bunch of lovely snails, you might have to replenish them over time.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I kind of like I'm trending more towards tuxedo urchins
Yep. Wait.
as herbivores.
Okay.
Yeah, versus snails, because the bumblebees would, over time just like snipe all the other snails.
Yep. Tuxedo urchins are great too. I have two in my tank. I love them. They just go over everything. They're underrated. Like they clean so well for algae and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Especially coralline.
Mm-hmm. This is true. It's funny too. When I remember back in the day when I had like rocks covered in coralline, and then you can see these like perfectly white, clean lines as they munch their way through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, they do get bigger, and so that there's like areas that they can't get to, and then there's like a little gross bit of algae underneath.
Yep, exactly. Aussie Dan, I have a mini coral farm in my garage and rerouted my ducting for heating and AC from the house to temperature control the room rather than using aquarium heaters and fans. Yeah, usually if you do have a big room, it is usually cheaper to just control the room rather than the tanks.
Depends.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm sure there's a certain tipping point of there.
Yeah. But... yeah. I mean,
like,
that's possible.
Like, do you use? I'm assuming you have air conditioner in the main coral farm.
Yeah, there's a couple of there's 3 total air conditioners, I think.
So if you keep the room cool enough, does that prevent your tanks from getting too hot versus using the big coil loop?
I would say that yeah, the temperature of the air is the thing that's doing the most work there, because I don't think the cooling loop is big enough to really pull down the temperature. It might shave off a degree or two. I think that perhaps like the bigger problem in my building is like the airflow dynamics aren't quite as good, because it was the air conditioning system was kind of an afterthought, and to do it properly from like day one is really, really expensive.
Yes.
And and A, I didn't know, and B, like the cost of it is insane. Like,
yep,
we're talking like 6 figures to do it properly.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a lot. It's a big investment.
Yeah. So a lot of like my HVAC was done hoping I wouldn't need air conditioning. So there's like a lot of different technologies at work, and at the very end, it ends up being air conditioning.
How hot does it get there? Like, what's your summer? Like, what's the hottest?
Mid-90s is hot.
Okay.
100 is like very unseasonably warm, but occasionally you'll get like 100.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad most of the year then. Similar. I'd say we've had some high 90s days. Like, what's today? Today wasn't bad. It rained most of the day today. Today was only 75. That's not bad.
75 is like perfect.
Yeah. Next Wednesday, a week from now, is 91. So.
Yeah, I mean 90 is no fun.
Yeah, I like mid-20s, so whatever that works out to. So like 25 is a good temperature. 77. Yeah, mid-70s. Mid-20s, depending where you're in the world. Happy place to be. I completely off topic, but I hung a bunch of misters throughout my trees in the backyard now. So when it's really hot out, I just turn on the misters, and the whole yard, it like instantly drops it like a few degrees around you. It's great.
That's wonderful. Nice.
Yeah, I hung a little aircraft cable between like the shed and the trees, and I did like a big triangle basically of misters up there. And I bought if you need cheap RODI line, pneumatic tubing's basically the same thing. So we have a store called Princess Auto, and it's like $15 for like 100 feet of it. So it's super cheap. So I use that, and I ran that off my shed, like over to my fence. I ran it all along the fence line, down, buried a little trench over all the way around to get to the house, so I could have put a little valve in to turn on and off. But yeah, so pneumatic tubing, super cheap RODI line if anyone ever needs some life hacks. And it's exact same size, works with all the fittings. It's the way to go. Thoughts about dropping 20 frags at once in a newly cycled tank? Depends what the corals are, but yes. I wouldn't go for super fancy acros, but most other stuff I probably wouldn't hesitate to add to a brand new tank.
And if you're really worried, you can just mix in like an extra water change in there in your schedule.
Yep, exactly. Minus 40 C for winter. Ooh, it's getting cold. Than doesn't do anything cheap. Than is a fancy man. He likes fancy things.
Yeah.
Gonna do it right.
Yeah. It's good and it's bad. So like at scale, there's a really good argument to do stuff expensively at scale, because a lot of like the corners that you can cut to save money ends up kind of crippling you later. So for example, if you decided, you know what, I'm going to buy cheap pumps from China, and just go in them with the mindset that, you know, these things will last about 3 months to 6 months, maybe if I'm lucky they'll last a year, but they're cheap. I can buy like 10 of them for the price of, let's say, an Ecotech, right? And the idea of like, oh, or you could buy like an Abyss for 10 times the price of an Ecotech, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like the price difference is so vast, it makes sense just to buy what amounts to like a disposable Chinese pump versus the premium brands, right?
Yeah.
Or even like a professional brand. But the problem at scale, what happens is it's not just the cost of replacing a bunch of little pumps or a bunch of cheap pumps. It's just like the labor associated with it.
The time, the knowing when died, getting someone
Yeah,
check them.
and they're always dying. That's the problem. Also, it's like it's almost like a daily chore. Okay, so which one's died today? Unplug that, put in a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how long has this thing not been running?
Yeah.
Great. And so, like, when you have a professional coral farm and you start to work with professional technology, that, for all intents and purposes, isn't allowed to fail.
Yeah.
And granted, everything does, but I've never had an Abyss fail, right? That sort of thing. Uh, Over the course of like a very large facility, just to free up that mental headspace of having to worry about that, you can do much more productive stuff than swapping out cheap pumps all
Yep.
day. And when you kind of like have that type of mindset that goes from like thing to thing to thing, it takes a lot of your labor, and you can really dedicate it towards much more ambitious things, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. And like, I don't know. It's like part of me has a similar thing too. It's like, okay, I kind of feel wasteful here just tossing stuff and putting new ones in all the time. Like I
Yeah.
still have, my original MP4, my original two MP40s I bought like 10 years ago are still going strong.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I don't know, buy once, cry once.
Yeah, or because the worst case scenario is just like if you buy pretty good and it turns out that that's really not good enough, and so you
Mm-hmm.
end up buying pretty good once or twice, and then you have to then cry again to buy
Oh,
the thing you
I
actually needed.
absolutely did that in the first year of the hobby. I'd slowly do all these little mini incremental upgrades. And I look back, I was like, if I just bought good ones in the beginning, it would have been cheaper. But again,
That's my
it's,
HVAC story right there.
yeah, exactly.
Should have done the HVAC right.
Yep. Burnt squirrel. I bought a biz because of Than. Plus, the electrical costs alone are worth it in the long run. Yeah, I mean, if it is more efficient, it's going to save you.
Okay, so here's the thing about electrical efficiency and Abyss pumps, and this is probably true for a lot of the variable speed pumps. Which, by the way, I learned that they're not DC. None of them are really DC. They're
Controllable AC.
three-phase AC,
Okay.
but the way that the curves work, it looks like DC. So I think, from what I understand, almost no aquarium pumps at the hobbyist level are true DC pumps. They're all three-phase AC. That aside, so in a biz, their numbering system is the wattage that they consume.
Hmm.
So in a biz, A200 is 200 watts. And a biz A400 is 400 watts. And a biz A1200 is 1200 watts. Okay.
At 120 or 240 volts?
120.
Okay. Where's a biz based out of? Sometimes you got to ask these things.
Germany.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because if they're 240 volts and they might rate it in German power, and you get it here, you're like, why is it double the wattage? Okay.
Oh, but so here's the thing. So you think that, okay, an A400, very capable pump, but it's like at 400 watts, you're not saving any electricity, right? That's a lot of energy consumption. But what people don't take into account is that there's a curve, an electrical consumption curve, and basically like at 80, 90, and 100%, it is using full power. So that's 400 watts. But that curve is not linear. And so when you start to back that pump off down to like, let's say 50% power, you're not at 50% electrical consumption. You're down to like 30% electrical consumption now.
That's all right.
Yeah. So now you're at 100 and something watts.
And it's super efficient.
And so like it's almost better for you to buy an oversized quote unquote DC pump and run it at a much lower power. Like don't sit there, cranking it to like 80, 90, 100%. Back it way off. And then that thing is taking like
sipping the power.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, question for Than. When you plumbed your biz pumps, did you use ABS to PVC glue?
Oh boy. Oh, okay. So sorry to everybody else that has to hear this. Okay. So the Abyss pump, to go from metric to imperial units, they give you these little adapter rings. Okay. And I was under the assumption that those adapter rings were ABS because the body of an Abyss pump is ABS. So all of our pumps we used ABS glue right there to go from like the main body to the adapter ring. And that ABS adapter ring to then my PVC plumbing requires a specific like green contact cement. Okay. And that's like the ABS to PVC transition cement. Turns out, because like what had happened was my guy that was assembling the pumps, he used the green stuff to do the adapter ring to the body. And I'm like, no, you screwed it up. Like that should have been the black ABS cement. So I was like asking both MRC, right, and also Alex at Abyss, like, how screwed am I? Because for me to buy new volutes, new adapter rings, and everything,
small fortune.
It's like $100 per pump, and we did it to 4 pumps.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, how screwed am I? And so Alex at Abyss actually had to contact his manufacturing guys because he's like, actually, I'm not 100% sure. Because whenever you get PVC from Germany, it looks different. It looks completely different than the PVC that we get here in the States. Turns out that ring is actually PVC and not ABS. So we luckily did everything correctly.
By fluke.
By fluke. However, every pump that we had done previous to that was done incorrectly. Because all the other ones are ABS to ABS, the black glue. So long story short, it didn't exactly matter. It all held water anyways. But to do it properly, you use the contact cement to go from...
That's like the transition cement or transition glue or whatever, right?
Yes, transition cement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I've used that on bulkheads primarily, but I probably also just use PVC to ABS and it still works fine. But it's like drains and stuff that aren't as critical.
Right.
But yeah, ideally transition cement's your friend.
Yes, transition cement is the correct stuff to use to go from body to adapter ring. And theoretically, I think you can still use that onto the pipe or whatever you wanted to put it on. I think at that point we just like stick on unions like immediately.
That is something not enough people do. always use unions. If you ever got to change something, it makes your life so much easier.
Also, hack. Um, I like to put a little bit of like a food grade silicone grease
Mm-hmm.
on the threads of
Hmm.
unions because like the stickiness of PVC for that part, it just screws and tightens down so much easier
That's a good call.
when you put just a little bit of like that food grade silicone.
Yep. Nice. Hmm.
Petroleum, I don't know what it is, but it's like
I know what you mean.
I think it's the product that we use on Amazon. It has like the most like grotesque title. Like it's called Super Lube.
Oh yeah, that's good. I have some of
It's
that. I
great.
use it on my 3D printer.
It's the best stuff. It's the best stuff, and that's what we use all over the coral farm.
Perfect. No,
It's that
that's actually a great tip because they can be a bugger to
to
undo
unscrew.
long term.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
No, love it. All right. I have to wrap her up pretty quick here, given my background cries in the background. If there's any last minute questions we didn't ask, feel free to ask again. I lube my union threads too. Good man, Fish Ventura. Yeah, that is a very good tip. Request for you to do an Abyss plumbing video. That's very niche, but
Yeah, so it's funny. I was almost going to include that little rant into my last video where we were talking about closed loops, and I did record it, and then so Becca does like the final edit. I was like, okay, Becca, there's about a 3-minute section here. Okay, let me know if this is too boring and stupid. And then she took a listen to like, that's a bit much. It's like, okay, 3 minutes, cut it out of the video.
oh, that's funny. Have you ever seen KFC dip kill dinos? I have not. Fish Ventura, thanks for the super chat. Although it would kill a lot of bacteria, so I mean, maybe.
No experience with it.
Nope. Question about gelato. Do you make your own gelato?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes,
Elise says,
we have
like, what flavors do you have?
okay, so we do mainly vanilla, strawberry, and lately we've been doing lychee.
Hmm.
And lychee gelato, freshly made, is problematically good.
That does sound good. All right. One day I will visit and have to bribe you for some.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
good time.
Good times. Well, then, thank you for joining me tonight. It's fun as
Thanks
always.
for having me.
Thank you. Fish Ventura, thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Tropic Marine has a cyano treatment. Yeah, no, I've never used KFC dip for dinos. If I ever get dinos again, I'll experiment with it because I have some of the dipping products. We'll see, but be interesting. All right, guys. As always, if you enjoyed it, that like button. You need to subscribe. Make sure you check out Dan's channel and streams, and we'll catch you guys on the next live stream.
See ya.